Hello, Internet. Welcome to Dip into the Ink, where I'm Noah and I, either myself or a guest, just dive into an issue or a collection of comic books. Today, on this second episode, I have the extremely intelligent and attractive Diego Crespo of the Waffle Press fame, etc., of writing fame, of just fame in my life. Hello, Diego.
Oh, thank you. That was an incredible introduction. There's no way I can live up to that, but thank you very much for having me
Mhm.
as the attractive, intelligent host of this show.
Oh, thank you. But today I'm very excited. We're going to be talking about Batman City of Madness. I'm very excited to go over this book with you for two reasons. Because one, I followed the artist and writer for this. I followed him on Instagram a long time ago, and I remember he posted like a piece of like a Cthulhu Batman, and I was just like, oh, that's so freaking cool. And I remember that was a couple years ago, and now that this has all kind of come together, because he's done like cover and artwork for Marvel Comics, for DC, and independent comic publishers, so he has works out there. But eventually, he finally drifted his over way to doing Batman, and I'm just very excited to see all this come together. But yeah, Diego, maybe talk about why you were interested in doing this with me. I know I pitched it to you, but you could have said no. So, what kind of interested you into talking about this book?
Yeah, I could have said no, but
Mhm.
and honestly, if it were maybe any other story from the big two, I may have
Mhm.
said no, just because Marvel and DC don't really have a lot to offer to me.
Mhm.
Over on the Waffle Press, I've talked about why on the retrospectives, over conversation with Gene, just like with some exceptions, characters like Batman and
Mhm.
Superman, like those characters seem to have a pretty good batting average for uh, stories that don't get screwed up by editorial or
Mhm.
franchise monetizing monopoly bullshit. And especially DC because they have the Black Label stuff. I also saw that Lovecraft Batman drawing a couple years
Mhm.
back, and I was like, "That's awesome! Someone should do that." And then like a year ago or however long ago it was announced
Mhm.
that the guy was actually doing this story. I was like, "Oh yeah, perfect,
Yeah.
awesome! I will totally check that out someday."
Mhm.
And I saw the positive reception to it, but I never went out of my way to check it out. I just don't pick up stuff from the big two anymore. If I see an interesting comic, I'll pick it up, or I'll buy a digital copy online just
Mhm.
for space reasons. Um, but this was something I was looking forward to and very interested in because I also I'm not like a huge Lovecraft nerd, but I do like the works of H.P. Lovecraft,
Mhm.
um, and he's a
Horrible,
perfect fit
you know,
for
horrible
trying something with
person.
Batman.
Horrible person. First of all, horrible person. But the ideas there are just so intriguing.
Yeah, like it is
Mhm.
unfortunate because it's like, oh my gosh, there's like the works of H.P. Lovecraft, there's horrors
Mhm.
that can't be defined by human reality, and then you just do a little more reading, it's like, oh no, he was just scared of black people, and it's like, yeah, that's unfortunate. That's
Mhm.
definitely unfortunate. Um, should be noted. But then you got great artists in other mediums, like the great director writer James Wan, who
Mhm.
also loves H.P. Lovecraft, or Guillermo del Toro, who loves H.P. Lovecraft, and they've totally like reclaimed similar ideas or concepts and made them their own.
Mhm.
Um, and so you can learn stuff from problematic faves. You don't have to endorse their beliefs. And I
Yeah.
think this comic specifically is a really good example of that too, because it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's very much it's kind of the vibes of kill your authors, that sort of idea. And I think that's something that's very easy to do when the author is deceased. Because
Yeah.
if there's someone like J.K. Rowling who can actively profit from whatever participation you have in her ideas, it's a bit harder to separate it. But when it's someone like, Tolkien or Lovecraft, you can kind of separate and kind of make your own things. That's exciting. And I think this is just so interesting. I'm excited to dive into it. And the thing about these, I love Black Label because, like you said about the appeal of DC and Marvel kind of being lost to you these days, it's just that because there are so many outside forces keeping comics in this weird perpetual loop. But because of Black Label, you really can spin off. You can have your own timelines. You can have growth that sticks to characters. So it's so exciting. But let's dive into the book. We don't want to meander on too long. First of all, you look at this cover. I love it. It's there's so many things happening. What's your thoughts on this cover?
It's a great cover. Had I gone into a comic store in the last couple months and I'd seen this cover,
Mm-hmm.
I would I would probably pick it up immediately just on the strength of the cover alone. Um, Christian Ward did the art as well, right? The art and
Yes, he's
the
a
writing
writer.
for
He's a
is it
writer and the
this whole
artist.
thing.
Yes.
Yeah, terrific work across the board. One of the big problems I have with modern comics too is that they don't really get stylistically interesting. They don't really have or let the artists like explore an aesthetic or style that like speaks to the character or the world they're
Mm-hmm.
portraying. Again, this is for the big two only. Batman seems to be the guy who's like allow the authors to at least try stuff even when it doesn't work, you
Mm-hmm.
know. Um, and this is another example of that. Although, again, I think we both are clearly positive on this one already.
I think the thing is that they because Batman is such a well-known figure that can draw people in. Like I feel like even if the book isn't successful, there's still some like notoriety to it. There's still some attention given to it. It's like a safe bet to experiment with Batman because you're gonna get some kind of return on the character. You know.
Yeah, and like just speaking, not to spend too much long on on just the Batman character as a concept. Like I
Mm-hmm.
do think part of the reason why he's had the most popularity of any comic book character,
He's
is
hot.
that many people think that. Yes, I think the character as a whole has just kind of become like he's become very flexible narratively. Like you can have stuff like this City of Madness. You can have Batman on a street level story like
Mm-hmm.
last year's the Batman movie. You can have him fighting aliens in the Snyder cut of Justice League. And it's all just like, yeah, I can see Batman doing that. Like no one's
Mm-hmm.
questioning whether or not that's like a problem in the interpretation of the character. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's always just like, yeah, Batman could do that, and not a lot of other characters have that. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I would like Wonder Woman to fight crime, sometimes like street level stuff, but other people maybe don't
Mm-hmm.
are not super interested in that, and I think there'd be it's harder to get her to that place, unfortunately. I hope I'm making any
No,
amount
you
of
make
sense here.
100% sense. I was just double checking my phone. This is art and written by Christian Ward. I believe lettering is someone else, but it's a lot of him. But yeah, I get what you mean because you see somebody big and it's just not you're not used to them doing certain things because they're often like pigeonholed into certain roles. But with Batman, it's just so flexible. You can have him across the spectrum, fighting in space, in an alleyway, like you were saying, like in a mech fighting Godzilla, or like getting shot in the shoulder and having like a die hard moment. So he's a very flexible concept.
Yeah, yeah. Like, what was that one Scott Snyder arc? After Death of the Family, it was like super heavy. I think right
Um,
where Gordon became Batman. Is that what it was
Oh,
called?
yeah, it was when Bruce, I think he had like a memory leak, and then it was Gordon in some bat armor,
Yeah,
and that was
yeah. And it was, and I don't remember much negative reception to that story. And I like that story myself, but I just think it's funny because it's like if you tried that with any other character, it's like,
mhm,
oh, maybe Jonah Jameson does Spider-Man stuff in a
mhm,
story, right? It's like people would be like, what the fuck is that? Like there'd be a
mhm,
very negative response if certain characters took over the Spider-Man mantle. But with Batman, it's like, no, yeah, it makes sense why this supporting cast would do this
mhm.
thing. Like there's just so much flexibility here, um, which makes stories like this possible, and it's just
That's wonderful.
very
Love
exciting.
it.
Yeah,
But we see at the top Batman, he is Gotham, Gotham's within him, and then below there's kind of tentacles, and then at the very middle we have some Court of Owls. We'll talk more about Court of Owls as they come in because we could do this intro forever. But let's
yeah,
cut to
yeah,
the
yeah.
first page, which is book one. I believe there's going to be three, written and drawn by Christian Ward, letters by Hassan Osman Ithlau. Correct me if I'm wrong, whoever's listening to this. There's some variants, DC Black Label, and then we cut to our first real page, our first page of the story. It's very much like a slow. It feels almost cinematic. Like I feel like you could like have a shot of the stars as it pans down to a lone person walking, and there's just this kid trying to get to Gotham. Uh, you see he has a gun, and he's just like, "Oh, I've never seen a bat before." The driver's like, "Well, you're gonna see a lot in Gotham once you get there." But what's your thoughts on this opening page here? How does it kind of how do you respond to it?
Yeah, I think cinematic's the right way to describe it. It's a very slow-paced comic, and I say
Hmm.
that out of love. I think some people hear
Yeah,
slow and they think boring.
or
I
negative.
see it as patient.
Hmm.
I like stories that take time. I like certain thrillers from the 70s that spend like 30 to 45 minutes with just people
Hmm.
talking, and then the last half hour is all the action, right? Like,
Hmm.
um, I kind of get the vibe that this comic's gonna be a little like that, and that makes me very happy. I didn't know how many books there were gonna be. I when you asked me to come onto this and you let me borrow the comic book, the physical copy, I was like, oh, okay, book. It says book one. Maybe there's gonna be like an anthology or something like that, or
They
they're gonna
could.
try to make more. And then like it the way it ends, I was like, oh no, they're gonna keep doing this like a mini
Hmm.
series. Okay, cool, cool. That made me happy because there's a lot to explore here. But yeah, it also opens on a much smaller scale than
Hmm.
I anticipated. There's other big one-off comic type stuff that just kind of throws you into the deep end. Another miniseries comic involving the Asgardian mythology. It's not a Marvel comic,
Hmm.
um, but it's from a Thor writer. I cannot remember his name right now, but
Jason
it's
Aaron?
a no, no, no,
Sorry, that's
no.
just the
It's
first person I think of when I hear Thor.
here. I gotta find it right now, but the
All
comic is
right.
called Ragnarok.
Uh huh.
Um, and it takes place after Ragnarok. So the Asgardian apocalypse has happened,
Hmm.
and you follow basically a zombie Thor through
Oh.
the aftermath of the destruction of the nine realms and like the post-apocalyptic realm land, right? But it just throws you in. There's a whole lot going on there. I'm gonna find the
Hmm.
writer of that comic and name him in a second, but it throws you into like a big event and you kind of have to catch up with this. This one is really leading the audience through the event as it starts
Hmm.
unfurling, which is a totally different experience than I expected, but one I really appreciate. It's much more character focused, I think,
Hmm.
and less so actiony, which is very appropriate for Lovecraft. Let me ask you, Noah, before we move on,
Yeah.
how familiar are you with the works of H.P. Lovecraft?
I think I have a general knowledge of certain stories. Ballad of Black Tom, I think, is the one I know the most. I know a couple off one-off stories. I do, and I think we mentioned this earlier, but you mentioned it. But the concept of the greatest danger to mankind is the unknown, and that we can't comprehend that. And in fact, the unknown is so much greater and bigger than us that we would go mad if we tried. Is a very interesting concept. And so
Mhm.
that's I'm not like a big Lovecraft person, but I have a general knowledge. I think.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, that's good. By the way, the writer of the Ragnarok comic, which was published by IDW,
Mhm.
um, was Walt Simonson, who wrote
Oh,
like
okay, gotcha.
that legendary Thor run back in the
Hmm.
day, and so he couldn't get this story made under the Marvel title, so
Oh
he
yeah, I
just
doubt
made it
he
because
could.
Thor is a character outside of Marvel Comics, so he just
Mhm.
transposed those
What?
ideas into that. Yeah,
What?
yeah,
No.
yeah. But
Like
it's a great miniseries. I
great
totally recommend it.
miniseries. I haven't read it, but I trust Diego, so go read it. But we
Thank
head
you.
off to the next page. It's this two-page spread where we hear somebody's writing out Master Bruce. You've been doing it for a while you've been trolling the shadows of Gotham. I'm a huge slut for whenever there's like an outline of Batman and there's stuff behind him. You know what I mean? Like the shadow and the light comes on him and you can only see like barely his face. Like I love those type of shots in movies and cartoons.
Yeah.
And I think it's so interesting that you kind of you look at this page and there's you can really absorb so many different things. Like if you look to the left, there's a lot more. There's brighter lights. If you look to the right, it looks a bit more destroyed. It looks a bit more dingy. I'm very interested to see this sort of writing style. Like someone's like, how I'm very interested because I know the art, but I don't know how this guy writes. So I'm a little trepidatious about like, is it gonna be good? But it's interesting so far, like a sort of letter script. But upon this spread, what's something that is there anything that pops out to you?
Yeah, I love a good silhouette shot, like,
Mhm.
even down to, like, photography stuff
Oh, yeah.
and obviously movie stuff, like, a
Mhm.
good silhouette goes a long way for me, and I think this is a great example of it, like, notice how, like, he doesn't reach above the skyline of Gotham, like, he
Mhm.
is Gotham, um, but I think it's notable that we're introduced to the outline of Batman, where we don't see the full person yet.
Mhm.
He's presented as, like, non-human here, like a mythical entity
Mhm.
first, which is just a nice touch. Again, to go back to the stylization of comic art and stuff like that. This is my jam right here. This is what I'm coming for. You know, like
Yeah, exactly.
this is why I fell in love with comics.
So we cut from this two-page spread to an individual, and we cut over and we find out that, oh look, this is Alfred writing things. He's writing things and burning them, and I think it's very interesting when you kind of look into this uh, concept. I think a lot of people forget how much Alfred is affected by the lifestyle of Batman, because I feel like a lot of people have a lot of base knowledge of, like, oh, Alfred, he's Batman's butler, he's supportive, he's there. But there's just so much trauma that Alfred carries on his shoulder, and you're kind of throughout the comic, you're slowly like dipping your toes into that. Um, and it says something kind of interesting where it says at the bottom, it says that the bat, it wasn't the bat that inspired Batman, it was the trauma that made a weapon out of you, a standard Batman. But then he says, now nothing brings me comfort, we all have our torment, I suppose, and mine is pulling me further and further down. And I think it's interesting to kind of show that, oh, people often say, oh, Batman's descending uh into the torture of his soul, but Alfred is also suffering here. Like, he's writing letters that he burns, and that's just
Mhm.
really sad. But what's your thoughts on this page? What do you think?
The other angle of Lovecraft
Mm-hmm.
is more than just like the terrors of the unknowable. Even if you see it, you cannot ever understand it. The flip side of that coin of Lovecraft stuff is when you do try to understand that and you lose your mind into that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think of the story Pickman's Model, which, if people are familiar with, was adapted into Guillermo del Toro's anthology series, Cabinet of Curiosities. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think that episode nailed that, but like it gets the ending right. And that's a story about like losing your mind to an obsession. There's other stuff going on there, but that's kind of the key to that one. And I think that's also why this the Lovecraft stuff is a really good fit for Batman, because we all
Mm-hmm.
understand Batman's got problems. you
Yeah.
know, he maybe likes doing this too much and doesn't think about the effect it has on other people. So again, it's all just it fits so well. You kind of look back at the 80-year history of this character and you're like, why didn't anyone do this before? you know?
It's kind of that, I think it's an interesting idea here that, in Lovecraftian ideology, the more you try to understand, the greater the madness becomes. I wonder if there's sort of like an idea being pitched here, whereas the more you try to understand how Batman functions and is real, like as an identity, like the more filled with madness you become.
hmm
So I think that's an interesting concept. But anything else to see on this page before we move on?
Uh, unless I'm mistaken, I mean, I could be mistaken, but when I was reading that last panel in the bottom right, I was like, "Are those the pearls?"
Yeah, I think those are the pearls.
Yeah, because it's the bullet wound, the trauma. So yeah. Because at first, or on second look, I was like, "Oh, is that like fire, something like pouring out
Mm-hmm.
like of the wall or something like that?" And then like I kind of settled with it, and then I was like, "Oh no, it's the pearls and the blood from the bullet wound."
I think it's interesting because at the bottom of this page, there's four panels: a bat flying a little bit closer, a gunshot wound exiting, and then kind of blood and pearls. It almost kind of makes me feel like the bat shot through the individual and then the blood poured out. You know what I mean? Like the
hmm
trajectory of the animal, which is, I think, a very interesting visual.
No, it is. Yeah, I didn't even
Mm-hmm.
think about that, but no, that's a great catch. It's like it's it's destroyed um his sense of self. Like
Mm-hmm.
Bruce Wayne never had the comfort and the his wealth kind of became a prison
Mm-hmm.
almost, right? like the pearl shattering is like an iconic image, but it's like, what does that actually like mean? Like, why do we keep going back to that image? Like, it has to mean something. It can't just be
Mhm.
a striking image. Like, we all feel something about it, and maybe this is saying it's like, that he will never understand that the comforts that could have brought him. Like, it's just it just allows him to be Batman. There's
Yeah.
Bruce Wayne character can't have that life.
Mhm. Which is so interesting. Uh, we cut over to the next page where it's more Alfred. He kind of he says like he kind of refers to himself as an emotional detective, which is interesting.
Mhm.
And he says like, "Oh, while you sleep, I go over your night log, your record of whose bones you broke. I watch the feed from your cow. It's giving me very much the Batman, the recent one that came out with
Mhm.
what's that actor? It's I'm gonna be a
Robert
piece of
Pattinson.
no, I'm gonna be such a piece of shit. The actor who plays Alfred,
Oh, Andy
Andy
Serkis.
Serkis. I
Andy
can't.
Serkis. Yeah.
All right, everyone roast me if you're watching this. Sort of, it kind of reminds me of Andy Serkis, like going through, the clues and the mystery and the files. It kind of gave me those kind of vibes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Which I
There's a
really.
very
Mhm.
similar vibe to that.
What's your thoughts on this page? Do you have
This
anything in
one. Sorry about
particular?
the
No,
dog.
it's okay. It's fine.
Just the you fell into the abyss, and then it's like a nearly all black panel. It's
Hmm.
just like, again, it's just like, it's nothing like mind blowing or like I've never seen this before. It's
Hmm.
just like, wow, what a great like way of expressing that idea.
Hmm.
Like, um, I just really like it. It's like a really solid series of panels that express
Hmm.
the written ideas.
Yeah, you don't need to break the bank, but if you can pull it off well, then pull it off well.
Hmm.
And it's very like turn off the light. Oh, the light's gone, fell into the abyss, and it's just executed really well. But we get a
Yeah, yeah.
little piece that says Mr. Half Face, like what's happening. Cut over to the next page where there's someone in terrible. Two Face has someone. Uh, I want to say shout out to the letterer because everyone a lot of people have distinctive speech bubbles, and you
Hmm.
see especially fun from sort of like the corrupted half of Harvey here, where it's like there's red and it's like jagged, and it's a fun thing. And we look down and we see that Two Face is fucking around. He's in an apartment. He's fucked up half. The other half is clean. I love the aesthetic of Toothpaste, man. I don't know how your face works, but I love the aesthetic. And he says there's someone else here in here with us. Uh, so it's interesting. He's planning something. But what are your thoughts on this page? What's going on here?
Oh yeah, it's a great uh Two Face design. It's a great Two Face like setting. You know, I think maybe again, not to just complain about the stuff I don't like about comics, but like,
No, we're
it's
here
just
to
a
talk
great
about it. Talk about it.
it's just such a great reminder of what this medium can do. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like there's not either not enough effort put in or not enough effort allowed to really make this like this medium, which is which is entirely visual,
Mm-hmm.
like to really express its full potential. And like, there's not a single panel in this book that we're going to talk about where I'm like, yeah, I wasn't that impressed by this, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe they could have done something else better. Visually, it's again just such a refreshing reminder of why this medium became so special to me.
And it's just every panel, every page, every sequence is just done so effectively.
Hmm.
I think it's
Uh,
interesting at the end. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
but I was just gonna say,
You can
only one of the guys.
Interrupt me.
Sorry, only one of the guys in Two Face's crew is looking in his direction. Everyone else is kind of looking away.
Mm-hmm.
The guy on the left there. Um, and so I just find that interesting. And then you got a guy on Silhouette, another great silhouette on the
Mm-hmm.
right.
I think it's funny that he's sitting on like a half destroyed couch, and I'm wondering, like mentally, can he sit anywhere else? Does he have to ruin every chair he sits in? Like, is that something he does? Like he's just like, this chair's too clean. I have to ruin half of it. I have to ruin half of it. And just like start cutting up half of it. I mean,
Maybe he's
that's
got like a little OCD,
mhm.
for his different personalities too.
Like one hand he has a can of spray paint. On the other hand, he has like Clorox wipes, and he's just like multitasking.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And I love the bottom of the page where his face almost blends into like the mindset, his mindset, like the chaos half and
Mhm.
sort of the order half. And it's I love that kind of visual. We go over to the next page where it's the classic Batman shot. I'm coming in through the skylight, na, 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 and everyone's like, "Oh, Batman!" And he's just like, "Oh, what did he say at the bottom?" He's like, "This is too easy, like Two Face of old. The crime, kidnapping one half of a set of celebrity twins," and that's just very silly. I love that. What's your thoughts on this page as you open up to it?
Yeah, it's the classic
Mm-hmm.
Batman pose. It's like anyone who would like, let's say you couldn't even see like the design
Mm-hmm.
of the bat symbol or um the body. Like let's just say that was entirely a silhouette.
Mm-hmm.
You could show that to anybody, be like, oh yeah, that's a Batman comic.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just some stuff you don't need to rewrite the book on.
Yeah,
Like it just
it
works.
works.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love the idea that the crime was kidnapping one half of a set of celebrity twins.
I know, right? Like
So,
what a fun touch.
like, well, I don't know why the first name that comes up. I'm just like, oh no, Mary Kate and Ashley. Like, that's just the first thing. Even though they've been out of
Yeah,
the spotlight for years, like, I'm just
I
like, oh
know.
no.
Yeah, they've not been in public
They
for some time, I
they're
think.
just they're just the most famous twins in my head. I don't. I watched a
All
lot of
right.
those videos with my sister when they were little girls, so that's just in my head.
Okay.
Uh,
Well, now I'm trying to think what celebrity twins would they actually kidnap today? Like what celebrity twins are there?
oh my, I don't see. I don't even know.
Yeah,
I
I don't
don't know
know either.
celebrity twins. There's a lot of
Oh, the
siblings.
Bailey sisters,
Oh, are they
Allie and Chloe
twins?
Bailey.
I
Yeah.
thought they were a
Well,
couple.
wait,
They're
shoot,
a
they
couple
might
years
not. They're
apart.
not. That's right. That's
I
right.
didn't.
See, it's a struggle.
You know
It's
what?
a
There's a
struggle.
lot of celebrity siblings that look so similar, so it can sometimes throw you off. But yeah, celebrity twins. And then we take a quick step back, which is very interesting. Whenever you see these Elseworld stories, it's always interesting to see how they kind of depict Gotham and this stage that they're gonna play with in a minute. Bedfellow Falls was supposed to be a luxury living for Gotham's 1%. Developer fucked up, and now it's only like half built, which is feels too perfect for Two Face.
Mhm.
Like if I was Two Face and I saw that, I'd be like, they set that up for me, like right, like they did that for me.
Yeah.
Like half of it great, half of it demolished. Like it's wonderful. And then we cut back to the fight, and we see a little bit of action, and Batman keeps like nailing on like this is too easy. But what do you think of the action here? What do you think of sort of like this quick glimpse into Gotham? Like, what are your thoughts?
I actually like that there's not much physicality in this page.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you see the setting, the setup to the fight, a punch, and him describing how it's too easy. You
Mm-hmm.
get the sense that like, yeah, this is a cakewalk for him.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to physically see that. Let's take a moment to just settle into the environment. Um,
Mm-hmm. Like you don't
that's
need him
yeah,
throwing
it's a
like a
nice
bunch
touch.
of you don't need him throwing a bunch of gadgets or like doing backflips, and like it's just as effective as to him like there engaging punch. Like you don't need to do too much sometimes, you know.
hmm
And
For Park
mhm.
Chan Wook fans, it looks like the middle panel is also an old boy reference with the hallway shot.
Love
Um,
that.
I don't know if that's accurate, but that's what I got when I read that. Although that fight is not, it does not go down easy for anyone. So
Or does not. But
maybe
this
not. I
fight
don't know.
is actually way easier because in the next page, they want to kind of balance another. It's funny because the orderly half is like, let's protect the boss, let's leave. The more disordered half is like, we're not balancing, we can fucking take him. And
Yeah.
you get to see a bit of Batman's mindset. This is once again where it's very, you don't need a complex move sometimes to be uh, effective. These are very like striking poses. You know what I mean?
hmm they're immediately effective. You understand
Mm-hmm.
immediately what's happening. So like, let's see. There's one, two, three, four, five, six, seven total panels on this page,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you get the full sense of the fight. Like I
Mm-hmm.
feel like uh, Christian Ward clearly thought a lot about this story for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Down to the details about the henchmen. Um, because when you throw henchmen at Batman, like obviously they're gonna lose like
Mm-hmm.
99% of the time, right? unless it's some twist about them being like more skilled or something like that. And he put in so much thought, there's detail in between the different types of henchmen there are,
Mm-hmm.
accurate to Two Face as a character and his personality. And it's just, I just love those little details, you know, like you can just feel that he was so excited to play in this sandbox with these characters and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that.
And I also love kind of the look into Batman's thought process because he's thinking, oh, I take out the ones that are making the most noise, and that'll help scare the ones that are already unsure of fighting.
Mhm.
So I love that. But at the end of the page, we get a Batman stop from the Harvey side, and once again we keep talking about the effectiveness of the panels and how they're used. He's just like, "It's me, it's Harvey. I need your help." And what do you think of sort of the emptiness right here of the positioning of you can only see that tortured half, like they're in the nicer half of the apartment. Like, what are your thoughts on how this is all framed?
Again, you understand the presentation, like why it's presented that way immediately. Could you go back to the previous panel really quick?
Yeah, of course. Sorry for those who don't know, we're
Okay.
looking
No,
at
no, no,
page.
because I think it's very important. We're like Batman's in complete control of that fight
Mm-hmm.
at the bottom of that page. We see his thought process to making sure he stays in charge of that fight. The background is completely white. It's like it's his space. He doesn't need to worry about anything
Mm-hmm.
else. He's completely focused. This is um this is the him in control. And so like go back to the other page we were on if you
Mm-hmm.
can. Because it's not full white. It's not completely white. The background when Harvey says, "I need your help,"
Mm-hmm.
but it is just as serious and it is just as in control. You know, like Batman's hearing him out,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just a simple, effective mechanic to make sure we understand that. Oh yeah, no, this is serious. He does need help.
Yeah, he is, and credit to Batman. Some people have him a bit more demented. Batman stops. He's like, okay, you need help. I will stop. Let's talk it out. I
Mhm.
love that for him. We cut over to the next page where we head over to a business meeting of some kind. I keep going first. I'll have you go first. They're in a meeting. They're talking about different things. What's your thoughts on this page?
Of it's very pretty. Like I sorry, like the art really is maybe my favorite thing about this
Mm-hmm.
book. Although I think the writing of the character stuff is very interesting. Like it's just so expressive, and I
Mm-hmm.
feel like it's a side of Gotham I'm not that familiar with. Like it's almost maybe almost too pretty if I have a
Mm-hmm.
criticism, but I just love like being in this version of Gotham as I read this story, you know. It
Mm-hmm.
kind of lulls me into like a sense of comfort. But sometimes I find like horror stuff kind of comforting. Um, depending on my mood. Like I think 2020, I saw the Blair Witch Project like 20 times, and I was just like, yeah, that was nice. That was a rough year for everyone though, so that's probably what that was about. Um, yeah, but and then of course we get another perspective on um different uh hierarchies of Gotham
Oh
right here.
yeah. You just see some businessman. I think the beautifulness is intentional. I mean, of course, to speak on the art, I feel like you on the left there's this tall building, and there's parts of it blurred out, almost looking like a mist
Mm.
that I kind of love. And they're kind of talking about how a subterranean river that's beneath Gotham is kind of fucking up the infrastructure, and of course, the rich people are going to be talking about it. And you're a Batman fan. I feel like you know a lot of things. That's a weird way to phrase that. Anyway, Batman. Is Gotham being surrounded by water like a newer concept? Because I feel like that's something I've only, in the Zack Snyder and in the recent The Batman, I feel like them being like a lake or like near the ocean or surrounded by water. I feel like that's sort of a newer concept. Like even in the Christian Bale movies, they're by water. I just don't remember in the comic them also having a lot of water. Is that just me misremembering things?
I think no, I think in the comics they just kind of like kept changing the trajectory until
Hmm.
now we kind of understand that it's by water.
Yeah.
I don't think it was as like solidly found
Hmm.
that it's by water. But like I'm even thinking to like the Joel Schumacher Batman. It's like Batman Forever has like a showdown either in the Gotham River or in the Gotham
Hmm.
Harbor, and it's like it's there's boat chases in
Hmm.
Batman and Robin, I believe.
Hmm.
There's big water set pieces in Batman Returns, although that's like sewer water because of the Penguin's lair. So like it's
Hmm.
been there,
Yeah, it
but
might
it's
just be me
not.
then.
No, no, I think you're
Hmm.
right though. It's like I think it is just like the last couple decades. They're like, oh yeah, Gotham is also like it has like a port.
Hmm.
It's by the Atlantic, I guess.
the,
I don't
the same
know.
the same way we don't ask where Springfield is, we don't ask where Gotham is.
Yeah,
But
the four
mhm.
neighboring states of Gotham, Nevada, Arizona, Maine, and Kentucky.
I love that. Oh my god. But yeah, it's a big boardroom. They're talking about how groundwater is fucking up infrastructure, and then we get a two-page spread where on the left we kind of see this guy talking to an executive. They're taking to some elevator he's never seen before, and then kind of on the right, something kind of crazy. I love sort of the sequence of events here as you see the elevator go down, 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 and we first get a little introduction to what the hell's going on when he says, "We've been here for over 400 years, Mr. Reeves. You're a blink of an eye. We're quite capable of protecting Gotham," and he just straight up murders the guy.
Mhm.
And if I didn't know about the cover with the Court of Owls, I would have kind of thought League of Assassins maybe, just because of the phrasing of like hundreds of years old. But while I turn off something real quick, why don't you talk about what you feel about the page?
Okay. um, yeah, I didn't think about the League of Assassins. I My immediate thought was the Court of Owls, not just because of the cover, but because maybe it's just me, but I after those characters got introduced, the regime of the Court of Owls, like
Hmm.
I think they became instantly iconic. Like
Oh
immediately they
yeah.
were just such a hit across the board, critically well received. Audiences loved them.
Hmm.
Um, People are like, when are they going to be in a movie at this point? Like a live action movie. And it's like, hey, like I'm not going to tell Matt Reeves what to do. I'd be super
Hmm.
hyped to see them in a movie, right?
I'm just
Um,
saying, it look
and
cool.
so I feel like they've kind of gotten more play than the League of Assassins. Like again, maybe that's just me having not picked up comics anymore on a regular basis,
Hmm.
but they definitely feel like they've kind of usurped like one of the main Batman antagonists. Not
Yeah.
that Ra's al Ghul isn't like he's not like stepped down. It's
Hmm.
just his organization is kind of like been a little more pushed to the
Yeah.
wayside to make way for something that's directly responsible for the history of Gotham.
Yeah, because you're right. They do really center about Gotham, whereas in the League is more so like a worldwide endeavor. But
Hmm.
the court is so specifically tied to Gotham. It's really interesting, and it's funny because it's hard for characters and concepts to break out and become part of the pantheon of these characters. And I think things like the Court of Owls and I don't know Harley Quinn, like those are more recent things that have managed to really become cemented as like major ideas within Batman and DC itself.
Yeah.
So,
And I also
mhm.
do love the touch on the side with the elevator numbers.
Mhm.
Like you had mentioned it briefly, but it is a really like fun thing where it's like 88, 59, 34, 12, -3, -10, and then
Yep.
oh he killed that guy.
He
Like
is
it's just kind of
dead.
thrown all at you at once, and you're like, wait, what?
Mhm.
That's
And
fun.
that is very fun. We go on from the spread to the next page, and it's quarter owls, and it's a crazy phrase. He's like, "Oh, we don't listen to the squeaks of mice, and owls eat mice." And I'm just like,
Mhm.
You dramatic ass bitch! Like your henchman doesn't care. You said that for yourself.
Yeah, I
You
know.
know?
They're this guy's incredibly extra, but
Hmm.
that's why they're kind of fun.
Yeah,
I
that
think
is
Batman
fun.
villains are allowed to be extra.
Yeah, the theatrics of it. If you're gonna be beat up by a guy in a bat costume, you might as well like have fun with it.
Yeah, yeah,
But the casualness of it, of like, oh, looks like he overdosed, sent some flowers to his family, like this clearly kind of says everything you need to know about this person. Like they've done this before. It's not their first
yeah.
rodeo.
And just like the casual stroll away from the
Hmm.
elevator, like I mean, the Court of Owls designs, like with the owl masks, and it's all very eyes wide shut.
Hmm.
But with the suits, like they're not just kind of spooky. Like they a credit to every writer that's kind of tackled them because they've done a
Mhm,
good job of like showcasing how like there's obviously a storied history there. The masks are very creepy, but they
mhm,
are like very smart and they have a very cold business approach to their endeavors that they firmly believe in, but
mhm.
it's just business attitude about it. No.
Which is a fun contrast to a lot of Batman villains that often do have to deal with like psychotic breaks and mental health stuff. So just it's like fighting a deranged businessman who just has it all together. Business people is interesting. It kind of helps set them apart. But we cut over to the next page where we are looking to sort of the water damage that they were just kind of talking about. This Court of Owls member is talking to another person, and they're talking about, there's been a collapse in the tunnels. We're afraid the chamber's been breached. And then the Court of Owls is kind of putting together like, why are we dead? What is happening? But what's your thoughts on this page so far?
Oh yeah, it sparks the intrigue where I'm like, where is this story going?
Mm-hmm.
Like we're setting a lot of groundwork here, and it's all very engaging. And I'm again slow in a very positive way. It's
Mm-hmm.
patient. And you can feel the ramp up happening where it's like, okay, well, if the Court of Owls are like, wait, what? Like something's wrong here, then you're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, something's really wrong here. you know?
And then we cut over to the next page where it's another double page spread where this owl member is trying to kill this one. I love the background, the faces. Like, what is that? What is this vault that's open? What's happening? And it's interesting that we just mentioned like them being business people, but it's mentioned that there's a great power trapped behind that door. And they're talking about myths, and it's very interesting. What's your thoughts when you read this uh, double page spread?
Yeah, again, like it's almost essential that you have to see how cold and calculated there are.
Mm-hmm.
So when something this off kilter happens, that it's like that you have agents of the Court of Owls questioning what's actually like going down. Like this is not a normal state of affairs for them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it immediately escalates the anticipation of like trying to figure out what's happening. What is that door? What is that spherical entrance to that? What's that weird
Mm-hmm.
like lens flare type effect on there? Like the guy straight up calls the other guy a fool for like
Mm-hmm.
trying to kill him and like um having released something, you know.
And
Um
I think it's interesting how he says that the one that we've been following, Owl, says Gotham provides and we must protect it. And it's just interesting their relationship with Gotham because we often say that Gotham itself is a character. It's breathing, it's living, it's something that's vibrant and static, and it moves. And you can say that in like a literary sense, but in a physical sense, that's not often how you regard cities. Like you can say that about LA, like, oh, it moves, but people don't normally think that. But the Owls very much take that concept of Gotham being something that they have a give and take with, which I think is interesting. But
yeah,
mhm.
absolutely. Also
but
a very different
mhm.
relationship than all
Yeah,
the other antagonists in Gotham.
because they don't have a relationship with the city. I feel like a lot of them have their own ideas, but I feel like they don't. There's such a unique relationship between the Court of Owls and Gotham.
Mhm.
But whenever you see an owl, there's not far behind is a Talon, who we see in the next page. I love the darkness he pops out of. He stabs this traitor owl. And then it's just an interesting sequence of events. Once again, the effective use of panels and pages. As you see one guy leave, and the Talon sort of setting up his equipment, getting ready. But what's your thoughts on this whole sequence of events right here?
Yeah,
And what's your thoughts on
the
Talon?
talent. I'm sorry.
What's your thoughts on Talon as a character?
Uh, One of the great, I guess, not to say they're just henchmen,
Mm-hmm.
but if I can consider them that for a second, I think they're one of the great Batman like henchmen antagonists.
Mm-hmm.
True believers. They look like guys from Assassin's Creed, and um, not that this is the qualifier for a good Batman villain, because like I don't believe that, but it is fun to watch Batman like physically struggle with
Mhm.
antagonists, because we have such like a high like barometer for like who he can tangle with, like it's like Bane, Deathstroke, Deadshot, like guys that really keep him on the edge of his toes.
Mhm.
Um, Talon slides right on in there. So,
Oh yeah, very effective.
um,
Works very well.
yeah.
But
And I love the shakiness of the panels on the right side of the
yeah.
spread.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, where it's like it's everything in these last couple pages with the Court of Owls leans into uneasy territory, down to the
Mhm.
way that the panels like are physically like canted angles.
Mhm. It
Like I
also
love a good Dutch
helps.
angle, and these panels are entirely Dutch angles,
Oh
basically.
yeah.
So
Uh-huh. And I love how it also helps like kind of invoke the idea of movement of things are happening. Like, oh, he's moving that way instead of sort of the more stable panels where it kind of feels like you were saying the Dutch angle earlier, where earlier it was more calm, the panels are more orderly, but now that things are happening, things are moving, everything's a bit more sharper, everything's a bit more quicker. But we look down to the bottom, suddenly something hits this Talon's hand and it looks like a battering. What the hell's going on? And we cut to the next page, and Talon's freaked out. He says no, and then out of the silhouette of whatever that is, uh, it's a Batman esque figure that has its own sort of text to it that says "finally." Talon says, "Athena bless me." I didn't know that they had. Is that the Greek god Athena? I didn't know they had any connection with that. I thought that was interesting. But he goes to press his detonator, and there's a bit of a cut here. But first seeing this image, what are your thoughts here?
oh, they're doing a doppelganger story. Um, which for a moment I will say I was like,
Mhm,
oh, I feel like you could do more with a Lovecraft
mhm,
inspired Batman story. Where he goes up against the Cthulhu mythos and stuff like that, and like you hit up the Shoggoths and
mhm.
the 9 foot tall albino penguins, like all that weird stuff where everyone's like, where did this racist man think of these great ideas? um, I will be happy
Mhm,
moving forward, but I was like a little deflated when I saw that
mhm,
silhouette for a second. I was like, oh okay. Um, but yeah,
mhm.
also clearly very dangerous, and it's clearly a problem. If it's a problem for Talon, it's going to be a problem for Batman.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I do wonder if they're gonna be able to, if not, if they're gonna be able, if they are going to be playing with the idea of Gotham and how Batman is symbolic in that. Like, is this creature taking on the form of a Batman type person because of the relationship Batman has with Gotham? Like, we don't know yet, but it's just like
Mhm.
this Batman as character that does a little at the bottom of the page, and we cut. And Talon's, what is that? Like the full forearm
It's the
is
whole
cut off.
forearm, yeah,
Yeah,
like
the
the
whole
elbow
forearm.
down.
His elbow down. He's bleeding, but that little bomb thing is still heading off. It didn't stop it. The thing explodes. Tunnel left on the ground, and then I already cut to the next page. But before I do that, any thoughts on this before I get to the next couple pages?
Nah, just packs a punch, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, the stuff's going down. The Court of Owls
Mm-hmm.
are on the run, basically,
Yeah.
from whatever's going on here. So, shit's going down.
Oh yeah. And it's once again effective use of pages because you don't need some grandiose fight where they're like calculating other moves. One cut, that's how you need to know how serious everything is. Like you
Yeah.
don't need a
Also, just
drop.
like in terms of fight design, like in any medium, like you can have a really cool extended fight scene.
Mm-hmm.
I love me some John Wick, but John Wick also knows when stuff gets serious and the character has trouble. Like that fight's gonna be a little
Mm-hmm.
shorter than the other ones, and you understand this is shorter because someone's outmatched,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes less is more. This is like the definition of less is more.
Oh yeah, and you know what? You saying that kind of reminds me of a moment in Star Wars Rebels. Jump ahead 30 seconds if you don't want Star Wars Rebels spoilers. 30 seconds. But there's a moment where, are you okay? Have you seen Rebels? Can I talk about Rebels?
I've seen Rebels. I've seen Rebels.
Okay,
Yeah, I like Rebels.
there's a moment where Maul and Obi-Wan have a confrontation, And you know, I feel like some fans were mad that it was a very short one, but I think it just really said a lot about the characters and where they are and who they are. That it really like a few uh, slices are like exchanged and that's it, and Obi Wan wins. And it's not only is it really like inspired by like those Japanese like slice you're done, but it's very much telling of where these characters are and informing you of what their mindsets are and who they are as individuals. So I think this is sort of a similar thing, you know?
Yeah. I love that moment.
So
I
good.
have
Oh my
I
god.
have issues with some of the. I wish those shows flowed better in my brain,
Hmm.
but stuff like that works wonderfully. I love that moment.
Oh yeah.
I will
Well,
not repeat because they're past the 30-second mark, and I don't
yeah, we're
want to
past.
spoil it
You
for
know,
anyone
no
who hasn't seen it.
spoiler. Yeah, go watch
Yeah.
all of Rebels and then come back and listen to the rest of
Yeah.
this. But
Yeah, absolutely. I would totally recommend Clone Wars and Rebels.
yeah. In fact, stop watching this right now and go watch Clone Wars and Rebels. I'm okay with it.
No, no,
But
no. Continue. I'm not okay with it.
but
Listen to Noah's show.
listen to my show.
The
Uh,
fuck.
but we go back to the next page. We cut away from the Court of Owls uh, to this kid. We haven't seen him since the beginning. He's clearly walking through sort of this seedy part of Gotham. You kind of see like very gross people doing and saying very gross things, offering him drugs, etc. And we cut down to the bottom of the page. Someone's like, "What are you after, kid?" A cup. I'm after a cup. Okay. What's your thoughts on this page so far?
Um, I just love the texture of the world of
Mm-hmm.
Gotham too, like physically, but also like you got these guys asking for like drops. Like drops are just like a thing in Gotham lore at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't remember hearing about them before the Batman movie that came out last year. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure some fan listening to this is gonna be like, actually, they were referenced as far back as the Frank Miller comic from whatever the fuck.
Oh.
Um, but like I don't know, but that's just like that. I like that that's like a recurring thing now. And Venom, of course, we know from Bane. It's like, oh, you
Mm-hmm.
can like get that like on the street now, and I'm like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. There's this whole like economic industry
Mm-hmm.
that's trickled down from the supervillain stuff or even the superhero stuff, and um, I just love when these worlds can flesh stuff out like that. Because so often, kind of question like, well, did I even need to read to keep up with this? Did I even need to understand this to continue this story, whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
this is a fully fleshed out version of Gotham that strange stuff is happening in. And that
Oh
makes it
yeah.
even more exciting, you know?
And I love the fact just because you're right, it really just shows you different types of Gotham. We saw rich, we saw this now sort of industrial, dirtier side, and there's something I love here on this page is that you see that as this kid is leaving sort of the bright uh, Gotham, as dirty as it is, there's lots of colors in the mix. But we go down to three-fourths down into the page, and you see that the color slowly fades. It becomes more muted, more blue hues, and then it's just like blues and blacks, and just a little tiny puff of color when he's looking at the GCPD building. You know, like the color's drained out.
Yeah. Great color design here
Hmm.
where it's, I think it's a good idea to make that kid wear, not just be a person of color, but wear like a bright orange sweatshirt.
Hmm.
They stand out in the crowd like that, but
Yeah,
also when you silhouette them against the coldness of the GCPD area,
hmm,
like it really makes the weight of it bear over you, even though we don't fully understand what he wants here yet.
yeah.
We know something's not good here.
But we check out to the next page where this kid is taking out some cops. We get a little bit of a background on him where we find out that this dad's in Gotham for some godforsaken reason. I don't know why anybody goes there, but he's hearing some things. Some policemen in masks apparently shoot him, kill him, and it's really sad. I know they're not trying to make any statements on like Black Lives Matter, but I think it is interesting that they chose a black character to do this, you know?
Yeah, like I maybe not a statement on Black Lives Matter
Yeah.
specifically, but still a political statement about like,
Hmm.
hey, there's unjustness in Gotham, and in the real world, there's unjustness with police departments
Yeah.
across the country. So
And
That's
I kind of
yeah,
wonder
it's
if
it's unavoidable.
yeah, and I kind of wonder. I don't think he was trying to make a statement either. I just think it's when they may not think about this, but there's reasons and choices behind every action we take as artists, as writers, whether or not we're realizing it. So I kind of wonder if maybe the writer slash artist is going to try to make some kind of statement. I think it's interesting because really, I feel in Gotham, who no matter who you are, what gender, age, there's a chance you can get shot. So I wonder if he's going to make a statement of some kind. I just think it's interesting. I'll keep a note of it.
Mhm.
But a cop shooting a black American is a striking idea that is terrible and awful and invokes a lot of feelings. So I think that maybe that's meant to help bring some emotionality to this character we don't know very well. I'm not entirely sure, but it's very awful.
Yeah, yeah, and like
Hmm.
I could see some criticism coming at this, and maybe I don't even disagree with this entirely.
Hmm.
Where you have like a black American in this story like this, it's like maybe you don't have to just give them um trauma from institutionalized racism.
Hmm.
Maybe you can give them trauma from more supernatural elements of Gotham if you got to give them any at all.
Yeah.
But I think that's a again that's a narrative systemic issue
Hmm.
outside of this one story. It's just something that kind of happens a lot.
Hmm.
It's sort of like it's almost unavoidable. I mean, it is unavoidable in the real world to not talk about this stuff. Like you have to talk about this and be aware of it.
Yeah.
Um, it is just a heavier subject than hey, the Court of Owls are in some shit, and Gotham's also in shit now because of it.
Hmm.
It's just real. This is a real problem in the real world. So if this is a little heavy for someone in this story and it kind of takes them out of it, I get it.
Yeah, I would understand that if this kind of like puts you off. Like you come to your Batman story for maybe not dealing with something so real world extreme.
Yeah.
But I love the background coloring here. It's almost like a watercolor notebook. I don't know how to describe it. It's like it reminds me of like a watercolor notebook that people do. Where they do like different. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah.
I just love the flashback.
No,
I like it.
it's very watercolory. The
Hmm.
the style in general feels more watercolory. It actually reminds me a lot of the work of Phil Noto. I don't know if you know his
Yeah,
work.
I love Phil
I
Noto.
love Phil Noto.
Hmm.
His stuff feels a little less defined, intentionally so. It's much
Hmm.
more painterly and like dreamy. That's why I like it
Hmm.
so much. I think he's my favorite modern comic artist, if I'm being honest.
Hmm.
Um, and this is a very similar vibe. Obviously, its own thing, but similar aesthetically. I think.
Yeah. So we cut from that page to another one where this we see the opposite end of that phone call, uh, where there's a shot, and I think behind him the cop it says hero cop kills drug dealer. So I don't know if that's
Mhm.
like a news report or something that was on TV or something. I think that's meant to be something like that. Like the shooting was framed as that.
Yeah, I mean, it's whether it was a news report, a
Hmm.
headline online. It's what the kid eventually saw in
Hmm.
response to his dad's murder, and that's how he clocked these cops. You know.
Hmm. And you kind of see at the bottom the cops notice him. He's like, I don't like the way the kid's checking me out. And that cop sends his boys, I guess, to go talk to the kid, I guess. But we cut from that. We're doing a bit of jumping around. We jump back to Batman. It feels like a minute since we've seen Batman, hasn't it,
Hmm.
through this comic? Because it's
Yeah.
doing a lot to set things up.
Yeah, like I almost wonder if like the title would have been like more
Hmm.
appropriate if it was like Gotham City of Madness, you know?
Yeah, the Batman
Uh
name sells. You gotta have
the
Batman in
Batman,
there.
yeah, not even a criticism. Like I totally understand
Uh-huh.
that, but even then it's not a criticism. It's just like wonder if it's more appropriate because I think this is much more of an ensemble thing,
Hmm.
at least at this stage. Like maybe the Batman character becomes like the focal point by the end, and you kind of
Hmm.
realize all these pieces needed to be there to support like the climax, whatever that's going to look like. But
Hmm.
that's neither here nor there.
But what's your thoughts on this page? Because I love how this is laid out.
Oh yeah, yeah. The Batmobile riding that yellow wave into the
Hmm.
silhouette of the face against Arkham Asylum. Like
Amadeus
It's
Arkham.
yeah, it's great. It's wonderful.
And note he's referencing, he says, years ago I was forced to sorry, that's my bad voice. Years ago I was forced to spend the night in it. Is there a comic moment where he spent a night in Arkham? Is that I'm not aware of a moment like that in his canon. But you don't really need to because the
Oh.
books, the comics just kind of referencing it. But I just, as a personal Batman fan, I don't remember a moment like that, you know?
Is the what's that Arkham Asylum comic from like it's the Bill Sienkiewicz one?
Is it?
Is that it? Is
Maybe.
that the one he's referring to? I
I'm not.
haven't read that in
Mm,
a long time.
mm.
But does that if that takes place all in one night, maybe that's what he's referring to?
Maybe. I mean, you don't have to particularly know it. He's just sort of referencing it. It's not like essential to like reading material. You know, with these
Yeah, no, no, no.
Black Label, it's just kind of to help fill in his perspective of it. But
Mhm.
that's interesting because the last thing he says on this page is, "I wonder if perhaps I never left," which is interesting because he refers to it in my worst moments. So has he just always been in his worst moment? It's kind of like the idea he's been in his worst moment since his parent died, which is
Mhm.
just fucking tragic. But
Yeah.
go over from this page, we cut over to the next one to another double page spread. Walking its corridors then and now feels like walking inside someone's head. And he's like, where there exists only the thinnest membrane between sanity and madness. And he's walking down Arkham Asylum. Love the page layout, and we bump into the Mad Hatter. I love the Mad Hatter showing just because you could show any Batman character really. You could interact with anyone, but the fact that it's a character that does deal with like fucking up your mind and hypnotics and brain control, I think that kind of helps to add to the theme. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, the Mad Hatter is a fun villain who I feel like would actually translate pretty well to live action too, and he just like hasn't yet.
Yeah.
Um yeah. You got Scarecrow and Joker, or maybe like producers are like, can't you just do the Joker again? Or something, you know? Like I guess he's just a little more campy, the Mad Hatter, so people want to stray away from him. But yeah, fun character. And frankly, we should be seeing more of him.
But what do you think? There's a couple panels down there. What do you think that is at the bottom? It's sort of like a picture that fades into his body. You see the bat symbol, and it kind of goes over a young man. Is that like a Wayne family? Like what is that a portrait of the Arkham family? Like what is that at the bottom? You think that is?
Uh, well, the
Because
Mad Hatter calls it the real world, that where Arkham
mhm,
Asylum's the real world. The one outside Gotham is just make believe,
mhm,
and so I think this is when Batman's saying like it's like walking inside someone's head. I think he's saying it feels like it's walking inside his own head, but he can't admit it to himself
mhm.
because then he'd have to admit that he is crazy.
Interesting,
You
yeah.
know, that's what I took from this.
And at the bottom of the bottom right, he's like Dr. Adams, and then it's this woman Ruth. She I guess works there. I don't remember who this is. If this is like a person in lore, I'm sorry guys if I don't know who Dr. Adams is, but she's clearly just like, oh, I'll take you to Two Face, you know.
Yeah.
We cut over to the next page. We get another double spread where we cut back to the Batcave. We see some beautiful iconic things like the dinosaur and the penny and the Joker card and a random, I don't know if she's gonna get involved, but we see Barbara Gordon. Shout out Barbara. She's kind of there checking on Alfred. She's saying hi. uh it's interesting that you can kind of like it tells you a lot about this version of Batman without doing a lot. Like you see this character, you see the costumes in the back, you know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah. Is when you do a standalone Batman story,
Mm-hmm.
I always wonder like, well, is the Bat family going to be involved? Because I feel like the Bat family needs to get more play outside of comics too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that this was a pleasant surprise because I didn't know anything about this story. I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
Barbara was going to show up in it.
Same.
Um, for all I knew, it could have taken place all night in Arkham Asylum, and Alfred wouldn't have popped up. But they're really taking advantage of Gotham City and the Batman supporting cast already, which is just a very pleasant surprise.
We have a bit of a line from her at the bottom where she's just like, "Oh, you're not talking about your feelings. Why do men do that? God forbid. how you talk about how you're actually feeling. And Miss Barba, I don't want to talk about anything. I don't know why you're attacking me. Like, I will not talk about my feelings to you, ma'am. No, thank you.
I do find it interesting that like we as a culture have accepted that Batman and as a proxy for men should talk about his feelings more.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, sometimes it's very on the nose in fiction, but it doesn't mean it's like wrong to bring up. And I do think, that's we have a lot of work to go as a culture and
Mm-hmm.
society, but maybe that's a good sign that we are at least talking about it more,
Mm-hmm.
even more than we were like 10 years ago. You know,
Oh yeah,
that's not nothing.
that's not nothing. So we cut over from this page. We get a bit more of Barbara to the next one, where I kind of wonder, uh, is it? We see a page of her looking at the costume. She's talking about how we all have our trauma. We need to talk about it. And on the left, there's sort of like the pixie boot Robin costume. In the middle, we get the full purple Barbara. And then on the right, I wonder if this is sort of indicating like young Dick, Barbara, and then maybe an older Jason or an older Dick. I'm not sure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
not.
I don't know. I because it could be multiple Robins that he's
Mhm,
had, right? Because I think in this comic so far we've only gotten a reference to Barbara and Dick.
mhm.
No other Robins, right?
Yeah,
Um,
I think one person on the street was like, "Oh," when she was being like really gross to the kid, she was like, "Oh, come be my Robin." Like that's the only reference we got.
okay, so then yeah, hypothetically this could just be like, okay, that was a younger
Mhm,
Dick and then an older Dick.
mhm.
Um, maybe he's Nightwing now.
Maybe
I don't know.
that'd be fun if
I
he
don't know.
showed up and he's just like
Yeah,
Batman. The
I love
fuck,
Nightwing.
love
Yeah.
Nightwing. And it's interesting because right before we cut back to Arkham Asylum, Barbara says, "Okay, I'm also a whore. Okay, I'm a whore for the shots where it's like a character looking into like a glass where it has their costume in it, and like the mask is on their face, so the reflection. Like I
Oh yeah,
love those
no, that
shots.
always
Oh,
hits. That always
so
hits. Yeah.
good. So Barbara looks so good with like the little bat thing over her face, and she's like, oh." She's kind of like quipping. She's like, maybe there never would have been a Batman if he had talked about his feelings. And then Alfred, very depressing, is like, who could say, Miss Gordon? And he just looks so despondent. Like, I'm
Yeah.
very worried about Alfred.
Like his bags have bags under his
His
eyes.
bags have bags. It's triple bagged, baby. But we cut from that back to Arkham, where Batman's asking this doctor, like, how's he been? And she's letting him know that they're divided, even more so than usual. So we go over to the next page where we have, again, I love when comics do this, where they kind of use the visual medium to separate things. So you don't need those panel shapes. You know what I mean? You can read it
Mhm.
fluidly, but it's just so like interesting how everything's set up. You know what I mean? So why don't we talk about this kind of art here because it's just so good.
Yeah, and this is the type of comic where you can totally get away with that because
Mm-hmm.
while I love this, you do kind of have to like dole it out very specifically.
Mm-hmm. Like this
Because if
couldn't be
every
every
page,
page. Mm-hmm.
yeah, if every page looked like this, then it's like, where do I start? You know. Um.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, especially for something that takes place in Arkham Asylum at this point, like perfect. It's a perfect
Mm-hmm.
approach for it. You know. Um. Yeah, it's very inspired.
I love it. This page very much feeds us the information that Harvey, his coping methods are failing. His dissociative identity disorder is getting worse. He might be developing new personalities. I'm not entirely sure, but whatever mental state Harvey's in is clearly getting worse or changing into something else. We go over to the next page where it's a big shot where I think it's funny where it's like, so Batman, when we asked for help, this isn't exactly what we meant. And he's just like, Harvey, like, what did you think I was gonna do? Was I gonna let you stay there? No, I'm putting you in jail,
Yeah.
and then we're gonna talk about this. Like, what did you think was gonna happen, Harvey?
Yeah. But I do like that they just have that relationship, and we as an audience can understand that like there was maybe once a respect
Mm-hmm.
between these two men. You know. Um. It's a very complicated relationship, more than just hero and villain. You know, like there's
Mm-hmm. Like, there's a
They ultimately
relationship
did it
here.
at one point. Yeah, they did ultimately at one point like fall on the same side of the law.
Hmm.
Um, and that there's like maybe an honor bound sense of like morality they still have, even though Two Face is obviously, Two Face.
Yeah.
He's got problems,
Hmm.
to say the least. But
And
yeah, I
even
always really like the relationship between these two characters,
mhm.
and this is a an interesting approach to it.
And I like that it tells you a lot, even if you don't know the character nor either of their histories in any other medium. It kind of says, like you say, the respect between them, like how they're interacting, you know?
Hmm.
And Batman's like, "What's going on, Harvey? Dr. Adams tells me there's a third person now." And then we cut over to the next page where he describes a more, um, he's feeling like not a third person, but I'm getting some sort of signal. He's not sure. And I love the use of light here. You know, we go through this page where we see Batman in total darkness. You see the bat signal come on and it like lights him up. You know what I mean? I just love the color
Hmm.
and the lighting used here.
Yeah. Um, Excellent use of lighting. When the bat signal comes in, it's like, it might as well be shining directly on him,
Mm-hmm.
because whether or not it actually shines on him like that, it looks like it's shining directly on him in
Mm-hmm.
that bottom middle panel right there. And of course it's not. It's shining up in the sky. But I think what I love so much about the art in this comic is that it's very subjective.
Mm-hmm.
It's not objective, and I think I'm finding that I really respond to comic art that is much more representative of an emotional state or a mental state or
Mm-hmm.
something expressing character. I'm not just there to watch people in rooms talk. I could do that with so much other art. I want artists to express something to me, and this comic has it in spades, even for something as simple as the traditional bat symbol shining up in the sky.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, if I was if I was one of the inmates at Arkham, I'd be pissed off because every time I look at my mirror, I'd see that damn bat signal. I'd be so pissed off. I'd be like, ah, fucking
Yeah,
Batman.
I just imagine one of those
Mhm.
like those fish from SpongeBob whenever they see the signal go up, they're like, "Oh, brother, this
The
guy
guy
stinks."
stinks.
Yeah,
Yeah, like everyone does it whenever the light comes on.
yeah, like, oh, again.
But I think it's interesting because Batman's attending to the light, but Harvey, the good side, is like, I don't know what's going on, but this voice is getting stronger. I need you to investigate this. And Batman's just like, what's it saying, Harvey? And he's just like, something is coming to Gotham, something truly evil. And what do you think of this page?
It's another great
Mm-hmm.
Batman like image, like a classic one with the silhouette of the signal behind him,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, hey, wasn't that in the sky? Like, does this really make sense? It doesn't matter. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter. This is a great image where you understand the impact of it from a character
Mm-hmm.
standpoint. Um, and maybe I don't know if this was intentional, but it looks like the symbol's more defined than the person in front of the symbol, which is
Yeah.
nice. Um, where again, like this whole comic, which ended up being an introductory angle to this story that we're gonna watch
Mm-hmm.
unfold, um, is about like kind of like throwing Gotham off kilter, which is already a pretty off kilter place, but it's like
Mm-hmm.
even more so. Like everyone feels
Uh-huh.
something's wrong right now.
Like, it's very
Um,
off.
yeah, so maybe that's why the bat symbol against the building, which again makes no logical sense but makes
Mm-hmm.
perfect story sense,
Yeah.
is such a great image.
And it's
It's,
something
it's,
that you can do in comics because if you saw it in a film bros would be like, that doesn't make any sense. But it's just like, no, it's symbolic. It's part of the artistry, you know?
yeah, like there is one image in the beginning of
Mm-hmm.
Batman Returns that kind of has that with the bat symbol shining in through the Wayne Manor and
Mm-hmm.
behind Batman, and he stands up into it. But also that movie has like it goes out of its way to show like five reflective glasses capturing the bat signal so it can shoot directly into Wayne
Mm-hmm.
Manor, and it's so ridiculous. Um, so that's how far they have to go to make sure
Mm-hmm.
the nerds don't get angry about stuff, and nerds still don't even like that movie. So I don't know.
Yeah, we
They're
never know
wrong
what the
though.
nerds want. We never know what they
Yeah, I know. Batman Returns rules. If you don't
want.
like it, it's because you're a loser.
Oh my
Sorry.
god, hot take. Uh,
Yeah, Batman Returns fucking rocks. I
mhm.
don't trust you if you don't like that movie.
We cut back over to that kid, who is apparently these off. I guess they were like off duty cops, right? They're kind of it was kind of hinted that earlier in the
Yeah,
story.
yeah.
I think they're wearing like these weird fucking animal masks, and it's interesting because I feel like this works on two levels. The first being, well, of course, you can tell me if you agree or not. The first being that this is Gotham and everyone's gonna have a weird fucking mask. There's gonna be weird gangs, and it kind of makes me think of uh, the fact that in the real world there are police gangs that are very real and very dangerous. And of course, if there's a police gang in Gotham, of course they would have some fucked up motif of like animals, you know.
Mhm.
So I think that was just interesting. But you see, there's a fox on the right that's just like little cub, what he's sniffing around for. The guy with the shark mask is like curious tourists get eaten here. But what's your thoughts on sort of these animal cop masks, guys?
There are great designs. I don't
Mm.
know if you've ever seen Your Next. It's a
That sounds really
slasher movie.
familiar, but I don't think
There
I
are a
have.
lot of animal mask stuff in
Mm.
that. The fox one especially really reminded me of
Oh
that.
yeah, fox one is
Um,
scary.
yeah, the fox one is like it's like looking into your soul as you're looking at it. It's like I don't like that. Don't zoom in on that. But it's just, um, but yeah, it's the designs are great. Sometimes all you need is just a creepy animal mask and normal clothes or a
Mhm.
suit if you're in the Court of Owls. But again, less is more. Like if one thing's off kilter enough, that can be creepier than like even someone like a scary monster that with an
Mhm.
overly busy design or something like that. Sometimes less is
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, for sure. And these guys just creep me the hell out, especially their little beady eyes. We turn to the next page where this kid is just like, "Why are you all wearing masks?" And the cop's just like, "Cause Gotham, and we're having fun." But why are you looking around? And he's just like, "I'm looking for this cop. He killed my dad." And this kid tries to stick up for his father with these cops, just being pieces of shit. Uh, Fuck Blue. It's interesting. We go down, and you kind of get like these almost like rough sketches. Like I don't know how to describe it. Like charcoal of like these cops. Like how would you describe that?
Yeah, I thought they looked like marker,
Oh
like a
yeah,
permanent
like
marker.
Copic marker or something where it's like.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm,
Very scary, very expressionistic. Um,
mhm,
and then again the white panel background at the bottom,
mhm.
where it's fucking dead serious again.
I love that when
Um,
the white, like a solid color or a white background, just like punctuates whatever's in front of it. You know what I mean? And it just
mhm.
the face of this kid is insane.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Great
mhm.
touch.
Yeah, yeah. We cut over to the next page where it's full color. The cops are a bit more hesitant. They're like, "Oh, like give us a gun." The kid's really upset, and this video this two things that just freak me out. One thing is where you can see inside one of the guys the shark mask, and you can like see his face, and I hate it. Like that visual, I don't
It's
like.
it reminds me of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie from the
Mhm.
90s. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I have not.
There's that
I'm so
now
young.
very funny, popular, like it's a split second in the movie, but
Mhm.
one of the turtles is laughing, and they're these great practical suits from the Jim Henson Company.
Shout out Jim
But there's
Henson,
this,
love y'all.
yeah, terrific work. But there's one split second where the dude, I forget which turtle it is, but they put their head back and laugh, and you see the real human mouth inside,
Mm.
and everyone's like, "Oh God!" Um, but this kind of reminds me of that. But it's also the first time we see um the real person behind the mask. Like
Mhm,
after the masks have come on, like this is like, oh yeah, they are just people.
mhm.
They're monsters, but they're not monsters. They're
Yeah,
not they are people. They can be killed by bullets.
and the second thing that I think is just so horrifying is that the kid pulls out a gun as the cops try to disarm him, and he says the famous line, I'm vengeance," which kind of I don't that's such a horrible and sad thing for a child to say, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like no one should
Mhm.
have to do this, especially a kid.
And it once again, it's because the Batman. I loved the Batman so much. Such a good film. It kind of reminds me of kind of the lesson Bruce goes through, where he's like, this entire time for Gotham, I've been this symbol of vengeance and retribution, whereas I need to get in touch with the idea that I can be a symbol of hope for the despondent. Like he's not just vengeance, he's also hope. Like he's a
Mhm.
multifaceted. You can't just dive into the shadows without reaching the light. But this kid is fully in like embedded in shadows. Like I am vengeance. He's here to murder adults to avenge his father, which is such that's such a Gotham thing, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But any thoughts about the rest of this page before we move on?
Uh, the almost supernatural coloring of the fox head eyes
Yeah. Oh my
after the
gosh.
very real like human response they have at the top of the page. By then, it's
Mhm.
like, well, the kid's still fucking terrified,
Mhm.
obviously. Otherwise, he wouldn't have pulled out the gun. So it's like there's a grounding at the top of the page, and by the bottom of the page, it's like, no, 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 this kid's still radically out of his element.
And I think it's interesting the drawing choice that you can see some of the fox cop's hands. They almost look a little sharpened. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it's just sort of like adding to that. But we cut to the next page where this cop is taken up into there. Ah! And we get like a silhouette panel shot where they're like, "What the hell?" And they're like, "Oh God, it's him, isn't it?" I love that the cops are like shaded in black, the kids in red. You can kind of see one of the guys running. He's like, "I ain't messing with no Batman." You know, he just starts running out, and it's such a great sequence of events. What are your and before I let you give your opinions, I love that this entire time these animal masks have been like white beady eyes, right? They've been very dangerous. But now that this cop is in trouble, we see like the actual eyes of the mask. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. They've done a good job of humanizing these guys when they need to, or
Mm-hmm.
I guess the shark. It's mostly the shark. I
Mm-hmm.
almost feel bad because it's like the other guys are able to keep up the facade.
Mm-hmm.
If they weren't like racist cops, then I'd feel bad, but I don't. So, you know.
But thoughts on this page?
Yeah, it's terrific. The top right corner is probably my favorite part of the panel.
Mm-hmm.
Minus the rehumanization of the shark again. The poor bastard.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, the outline of the kid in the orange silhouette, the color he's wearing for his sweater.
Yeah, I
Um,
forgot about that. You're right.
yeah, yeah, and like Gotham in animation or comics tends to have that great like really warm sky, like
Mm-hmm.
red, orange, like this, whatever. So part of it is just the aesthetic of Gotham, but another part of it is like maybe someone or something is looking out for this kid
Mm-hmm.
because they are no longer in control. The orange starts to overtake these panels now.
Mm-hmm. And I love that. But I don't know if he took the kid's gun or if that's the old cop's gun, but he pulled out a gun. He's upset, and we see just an insane shot of something taking off this cop's head. Gun goes off. This kid is almost like it's like a bucket of like someone throws a bucket of water at you, and like the splash goes in front and behind you. It like hits this
Mhm.
kid in the face. It's insane.
Yeah, and the blood is not
Mm-hmm.
blood colored; it's orange still. And
Mm-hmm.
then
It's
you see the orange starts to come back into the frame, but the bottom right panel,
mm-hmm.
it's it's back like completely.
And this kid is like his face is like in surprise, and then he's like looking down like he's in shock, and then he hears a voice behind him. Once again, shout out to the letterer because we get like a insane like worry not like this, like you can almost hear how it sounds. It's like it's
Mhm.
shaky, the text, and the kid looks behind him, and it's fucking Cthulhu Batman.
Yeah.
And oh my god, he's just like, he can't hurt you now, child. And just okay, okay. We know. I know you talked about earlier about not being too enthusiastic about the Batman symbol earlier when it got out of the vault. But once you saw the reveal of this, what were your thoughts?
I was like, oh, okay. They're committing to the
Mm-hmm.
weird Lovecraft look at least. And that made me very excited because you see that first promotional image or the first image when that guy drew Cthulhu Batman.
Mm-hmm.
And then I start this and I'm like, oh, I thought we were gonna get weird with it. And it's like, oh, it's what? By the time I get to this page, I'm like, okay, we're going somewhere here. But it's not just um it's not just an imposter story. There's something else wrong here.
Mhm.
Um and it keeps it very intriguing, you know.
I do wonder if they're gonna play with the idea of like whatever this ancient, horrible, horrific being is. I wonder if they're gonna play with the idea that this being is maybe taking on like a semblance of Batman due to what Batman means to the people of Gotham. You know what I mean? I wonder if they're gonna play with some ideas of that.
Yeah, I that's what I'm thinking too. And
Mhm.
then like much like the Batman that you were hyping up earlier, the movie from last year, 2022. Um, that movie ultimately ends with Batman not having to be a symbol of vengeance, not to be just vengeance, but be a symbol of hope. And when he saves that kid at the end, like he's not just saving the kid, he's saving himself.
Mhm.
Like that kid isn't just the mayor's son. That was little Bruce Wayne he was saving. He was saving his soul. And I think this is gonna go down a similar trajectory
Oh, okay, I could see that.
where it's gonna come down to the battle for this kid's soul, whoever this kid is. Not that he's gonna be like some big comic figure. Like it's clearly just some kid who's just had a very difficult life, and I think, um, we have this potential version of an ultimate evil here with this
Mhm.
Cthulhu Batman or whatever the name's gonna be titled to, and then the Bruce Wayne that we know and love, and I think that's what it's gonna come down to.
I love how maybe 12% of this video is like us just loving the Matt Reeves Batman, at least.
It's so good.
I like it a lot. I don't care what my friends say. Cut away from
Your
this.
friends are wrong. Sorry.
But this Cthulhu Batman just tears off this guy's head. He took the body is right next to him too, so he took the body, and then we kind of cut to this. It's almost like hard to understand what's going on, but it's like this blacker page where we get some more info. Like, yes, after guarding the door for 100 years, the creature has indeed escaped. So we're setting up a time frame. Then Lord Stragard, we must act fast to protect Gotham. We are Gotham. We are Gotham. Now we can kind of guess where this leads to, where we kind of see masks and I'll just these pages kind of flow together. So I will kind of jump ahead to a couple of them where it's kind you kind of realize the visual is like eyes opening and closing. What do you think of this effect? Because I kind of really love it.
Oh yeah, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
love it. It reminds me of like that shallow depth of field when you see a
Mm-hmm.
movie, something comes into focus slowly. That's
Mm-hmm.
the effect that these pages have on our eyes. Like what's stuff's coming to light with the Court of Owls, and again, like they're kind of shaking in their boots, like
Mm-hmm.
they messed up, and it's enough of a problem that they're actively concerned about it. The Court of Owls is concerned about something going amiss in Gotham. That's like that right there. That sentence is like that
Mm-hmm.
makes you know that this is um heavy duty stuff we're about to witness.
And then we go to another double page spread, and he says they kind of talk about how their talent needs to be repaired. I often am reminded that they have a bunch of owl minions, but the Talon is like a specific soldier. You know what I mean? I kind of forgot about that until these
Mm-hmm.
pages. But they kind of we get the information like, oh, we'll go to Gotham's Batman, a bat to hunt a bat, uh, and there it's kind of setting up like Batman will join the Court of Owls, you know that kind of thing. And what's your thoughts on this sort of sequence realization of them like we're gonna go to Batman?
Um, well, they've never done that before, so it's
Mm-hmm.
just like an interesting premise. Like it's always kind of fun when you have antagonists like enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know. That's one of my favorite tropes. So whenever that happens, I'm like, hell yeah! Like, so I'm already not just getting a Lovecraftian inspired Batman story. I'm also getting Batman
Mm-hmm.
potentially teaming up with the Court of Owls. Like, I don't need that to happen. I'm sure something will go horribly, horribly wrong that's
Oh,
going to
one hundred
preclude that from
percent,
happening.
100%.
But like the fact that like
Mm-hmm.
they're the ones who are like, oh, we'll get him to work with us. Like it's setting up a lot of really interesting stuff moving forward, and I'm really interested in where it goes, however it plays out.
Mm-hmm. I think there's an interesting relationship built up between the court and Batman because in the first original 2011 sort of introduction of them, there's kind of just this like, we are Gotham, you are temporary, you are nothing. And then after he bests them and they go back and forth a little bit, I feel like they've accepted Batman as more of like a stable presence in Gotham. So that kind of, because of that, they can be like, well, we can go to him because he's going to help
Mhm.
Gotham. We'll leave him with no choice. He's going to join us. We're going to work with him. Very interesting stuff. After these couple pages, we cut back to Alfred once again in his depression mode. Uh, it's this is so fucking sad. I'm just gonna read this. You see like the outside of the mansion. You see him looking at a picture of Martha and Thomas, and he's just like, "There was a time when I felt guilty sleeping before you came home. Now I'm too exhausted to do anything but speak with ghosts as I succumb to sleep. Good night, Master Bruce. I hope to see you in the morning." And then he says out loud to the painting, he's like, "Forgive me. I should have been stronger. I should have protected him. But God forgive me. I wanted vengeance too." And that's just like, oh, that's so good because Alfred, he feels so bad because he feels like he failed Bruce, but on some level, he does get some like catharsis from Bruce being Batman, you know?
Mhm.
And
It's
I'm just loving it. I'm loving it.
no, I love it too because it's like he feels that he failed him,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, well, maybe he can save himself, and by saving himself, he saves my failures too,
Mm-hmm.
because he's gonna be okay. Like, a sad realization.
Yeah, it's sort of like you put like that generational trauma, that generational sin that you can't deal with it, so you project it onto your kids to deal with. You know what I mean? And like he feels
Mhm.
like he failed, so he's like, my sort of son Bruce shall take on these things for my satisfaction as well as his own. You know, and it's just horrible. It's so sad.
Yeah.
So after that sort of confession, we go back to Harvey, where this whatever personality or voice approaches him. What do you think of the design of this voice thing? It's sort of because I think it's
I
interesting that
like
instead of
that.
half, it's like, you know. Okay, go ahead. I don't.
Yeah, it's like the
Uh,
mouthpiece is different. The head
mhm.
and the brain are different. It's not
Yeah.
down the middle. It's not half the body. Um, it's specifically the mouthpiece,
Hmm. I think that's so
which
interesting.
yeah, yeah, that makes it stand out more. I
Hmm.
don't fully understand what that means yet,
Hmm.
but it is very interesting. It's a good design.
I
And the
wonder.
weird smoke from
Yeah.
his pocket is a nice touch. Very Devil's Backbone. I don't know if
Hmm.
you've seen that movie.
I have not. I'm so young.
All right. Okay. No, you're not that much younger than me.
Yeah, I'm so young.
It's a Guillermo del Toro movie.
I'm so
It's
young and
very
pretty.
no. Anyways, but it's a great design.
Mhm. I know sometimes there's some Cthulhu mythos about like psychic resonance and energy, and I wonder if any characters that are dealing with like mental issues, psychotic breaks, like Hatter, Two Face. I don't know if we're gonna get Joker. I'm a little tired of Joker, so I hope we don't see him. But if we get Joker, maybe we'll see something from him. I'm not sure. But just like this mental energy being released upon Gotham, I think might be an interesting angle. I'm not sure if they're gonna hit it, you know? But I think it'd be interesting.
Yeah.
But this voice is like, you have to get a message to Batman. You have to tell him the Batman below has the boy, and he means to make a Robin out of him. And then we get this to be continued, where we have this panel of Gotham in the back. We have this bat flying and Cthulhu face. The kid's knocked out, I think, but it's just like it's crazy. It's very crazy. But I
Yeah.
wonder.
Also, I guess
Uh,
the name for this creature, until further notice, is just the Batman Below.
mhm.
Which is a good name.
Yeah,
It's
it
a good name.
works. Alliteration
Oh.
is sexy.
Yeah, I guess so. Sure.
Sorry, that's a very very that's a Teen Titans reference. Don't worry about it. Uh,
Oh.
so please ignore me. But I think because the sort of the premise that's given along, if you when you look up this book, it's like, oh, this evil creature tends to find a Robin. Like that's a part of what's attributed to this book's description online. But I kind of avoided that. So hearing that he means to make a Robin of him, like what does that mean? Like what does that do? Is it sort of like an Ilyana X-Men type thing where I need to corrupt this child in order to like create something evil? Like, is it that sort of thing? Is it so that he can kind of be an equal to Batman and Robin? Like, what does that mean? You know, it's I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, to me, I think it's less of a physical
Mhm.
combatant idea. I do
Yeah,
think it is like what I was saying earlier. Like it's gonna come down to saving the soul of Gotham by saving the soul of
mhm.
this kid,
Yeah,
and
one hundred
stopping
percent.
him from being enraptured in whatever the Batman below is, and this whole mythos that we're probably gonna uncover.
But that is officially the end of the comic. It says to be continued. So uh, final thoughts, Diego. What do you think of this whole comic? What do you think of the whole issue? What do you think of it?
This was a great read. This was I can't imagine a better, more exciting return to the big two for me.
Mhm.
I'll definitely keep reading this, and I really want to see where it goes. Christian Ward, congratulations on getting this project off the ground, and from my understanding of a very popular, positive reception so far,
Mhm.
rightfully so. Maybe the most exciting concept the Big Two has had since they made the Justice League dinosaurs that one time.
That
Not even joking. That was
oh, I
awesome.
loved that. That was great.
Yeah, they should
Oh
just
my
keep that series going.
I don't know if it's getting revival, but I think it did decent in sales. I
Okay.
that was a good series though. Yeah, I loved this issue. It was so intriguing. I think what it did is it was I think we kind of pressed on this idea of being slow, not necessarily being bad. It's this book very much kind of sets up everything you're going to need for the next few issues, and I'm just so intrigued to see where it goes. I hope it gets really weird because if you have a Black Label, you have a Batman book, and you know this doesn't affect continuity. I think you should get as weird as you want. I think you should just be off the balls, walls, just I don't know, like just
Yeah.
fighting Chithon or whatever. I don't know. I
And
want it to be
and
weird.
yeah, and also just to go back to like the Lovecraft and the
Mm,
more slow patient angle, like I think when people hear Lovecraft, they think of like big Cthulhu
mm,
and like spectacle horror and stuff like that. Like if you go back and read at the Mountains of Madness, there's a lot of like implications of stuff. There's
mm,
a lot of like, what the fuck is this? What am I reading? But there's nothing like in your face. Even
mm,
at the very end, you kind of get the description of a reaction to something horrific,
mm,
like one of the passengers, one of the few survivors in the book. If I remember correctly, only two people survived that narrative.
mm,
The rest of them are missing and presumably killed, and sometimes outright killed. And you find remains and stuff like that. One of the survivors looks back from the side of a plane and loses their mind because they can't comprehend what happens. That doesn't happen constantly throughout the book. It's a build to stuff like that, and you leave that story not having a better understanding of what happened
mm,
and a worse understanding about your place in the world.
mm.
Like you feel worse after having read that. So I'm interested to see like where this narrative goes. Like, is it gonna be more like that type of Lovecraft story, or more like a Guillermo del Toro Lovecraft story where it's like, yeah, the horrors of the unknown are out there, but together we can overcome them. No, I'm down
Mm.
for anything at this point. Um, but I would like to see it get even stranger.
I do
So
love
far, it's
that.
everything else is working.
Yeah, and you know, definitely with that Guillermo del Toro spin is that at the end of the day, there is hope. Mankind can prevail. In the original Lovecraftian works, there is no hope. There is nothing we can do. All we can do is bide our time until the unknown swallows us. You know.
Yeah.
So I love that positivity, and you know, Batman, symbol of hope. We've been talking about it a lot. Matt Reeves, like saving the soul. And, you know, they're setting up a lot of stuff for Alfred. Maybe Alfred will have some part of it. We don't know, but so exciting to read this with you. Thank you so much for doing this with me, Diego. I really appreciate it. If anybody listening wants to follow you and listen to your musings or read your videos or talk to you, where do they go?
I'm still on Twitter, unfortunately, so you can find me there.
Mhm.
I don't shit talk nearly as much as I used to. Unless I see you posting AI, not you specifically, just in general, the people out there.
Mhm.
Then I will shit talk you and I'll call you a fucking moron because you're being a fucking moron. And you might think that's rude, but I wouldn't call you a fucking moron if you weren't being a fucking moron. But I'm also positive about stuff like when I post my photos on Instagram and stuff like that. So you can go find that there. And of course, I have the Waffle Press podcast, which I
Mhm.
co-host with my friend Gina Versa, and Matt Garingo. For the retrospective stuff I do with Matt, we just posted our Friday the 13th franchise retrospective. If you want to stay in the horror vein, I cannot promise that those movies are as entertaining as this comic, but some of them are. And we had a lot of fun talking about the history of all that. And yeah, spooky vibes
Spooky
are alive and well
vibes.
this year.
This is gonna sound silly, but I know you plugged all that. But what I'm most excited is the Waffle Press. They do a failed award contenders thing, and I think you guys just put out one for a Fantastic Mr. Fox, which I'm
We
very.
failed
Oh,
blockbusters.
was it failed blockbusters?
We
Okay,
we are
because I know you.
wrapping up our failed
Uh,
blockbusters
gotcha.
season.
Because I know you have different segments.
Failed
Mhm.
award contenders will return in early 2024.
Gotcha. Because I know you guys have like different segments, but failed blockbusters. I love Fantastic Mr. Fox. I can't wait to listen to that pod about it because I love it so much, and I hope you guys are positive about it.
Very positive. I will
Yeah,
say when we call them failed,
financially.
we're very open about that being a clickbait title.
Yeah,
They maybe failed critically or at the box office, but they're not always failed in our hearts.
yeah.
Fantastic Mr. Fox failed at the box office, so we get to talk about how much I love it. So,
Well, viewers, you'll never fail in my heart. Bye. I don't know.
but well, wait, where can people find you?
I don't want to.
Okay.
You can find me at Noah is Garcia on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. You can follow my photography at Noah Garcia _photography. And you can listen to me and my friend Lewis talk about pop culture on the Geek Press across all podcast listening apps.
All right. I'll check all
Nice.
that out. Thanks, Noah.
Thanks. And I'll check all of that. Bye, guys. Bye. I'll see you later. Bye.
Goodbye, Jonathan
Goodbye.
Demi.